Well, welcome back to another episode. This time on the Miles Driven, we're doing the best value SUVs that you can buy. And by value, I mean from new price to used price, what car can you get that brand new was probably outside of your wildest dreams and all of a sudden could be had for 50%, 60%. The worst one on the list is going to be 80% of its price after 8-9 years from its new price to its used price. So let's get straight into the list. But I will add that a few of you looking for sort of Japanese cars thinking, oh, they're great value to have. They hold their residuals very well because most people know they will last for decades. And so there's no Toyota Land Cruiser on this list. There are no Toyota RAV4s, Highlanders. All those cars, they hold their value too much, along with Subarus and some of the other Japanese cars. So one of the few that did make it through is the Lexus, and it's a Lexus RX that will start our list off. Now, this car actually, of all the cars on the list, is the second best performer for holding its value, but because it does dip below the 50% mark, it's made it onto the list. So, specifically the RX 450h hybrid model. So, what you'll find with SUVs, the higher spec they are, the bigger drop they're going to have from that top line price, brand new in the dealer, to what you can get them for after 8 or 9 years. With Lexus, if you're in the UK, I've done this list based on UK prices and USA prices because Europe seems to sit somewhere between the two. In the UK, we're talking about a 65% reduction from its headline figure in the dealership to about 8 years old with average mileage, so 70, 80,000 miles, 65% depreciation. In the USA, this is actually one of the few cars where the USA's depreciation is going to be stronger than the UK's. It's 52%, so just over that 50% marker. And I think that's because Lexus do sell the majority of their vehicles in the USA. They're very popular in the US. And so even though at 7-8 years old, they have lost more than half their value, a lot of people trust that these cars will last a very long time. The next one on the list is the Volvo XC90, the favourite big SUV for families. In the UK, a 62% reduction in its brand new price to its used price. In the USA, 68%. So that, if you're out there and you're thinking, big family car, yeah, something safe, something that just has that look about it that I know I can depend on it for a long period of time. And if you're in Europe, you can have it in a diesel or a petrol. XC90. There is a buyer's guide for the second generation XC90 on the channel too. This one I've only just done the buyer's guide for, so I was surprised when I was putting the list together and I was trying to make sure it was fair to all the manufacturers, but I wanted to get some prestige in there. And I was surprised that this one made the list. Not so surprised of its bigger brother, but this one I was a bit surprised. It's the Mercedes GLC. In the UK, 58% depreciation after 8 years. In the USA, 68%. If you go for a high specification GLC in the USA, its top line figure to what it is after 8 years, average mileage, 68% reduction. So that is a hell of a deal if you look at it that way. And because the car isn't one of the larger SUVs, it should retain its popularity. The interesting thing with the GLC, especially on the first generation, is it was one of the most popular Mercedes SUVs to go on sale. No real surprise in some ways. It was one of the cheaper SUVs, but it was large enough to sort of fit into that family SUV segment, unlike, say, the GLB or the GLA, which used more of a hatchback chassis. The next one, though, Mercedes GLE, no real surprises here, but the depreciation may surprise you, especially if you go for a high-spec model, 67% reduction from that headline figure after 8 years in the UK, with 80,000 miles. Now that is for a high specification one. The lower specifications, because they were cheaper from dealers and there are more of them, the market gets a little bit stronger, but not a lot. In the USA, as much as 71%. This was actually one of the worst performers on the list. It's 7 out of the 12. So kind of gives you context for what's coming up, but only fourth to go on our list. But yeah, 7. So the real hit, if you're looking at a GLE and you're willing to go for the old shape, the old model, you could be saving a huge amount of money. Now, Jeep had to make an appearance on the list, and with a 70% reduction from its new price to its used price, it was kind of a given that it was going to get here. This is the Grand Cherokee model. I would say these are very capable cars, and the big plus if you go for a Jeep is that Really doesn't matter whether you're watching this in Australia, in Europe, in the UK, in Ireland, USA, Canada. There's always going to be a Jeep specialist. There is always someone that knows how to fix a Jeep. Doesn't matter where in the world you are. And so if you go for an 8-year-old, let's say 80,000, 90,000 mile, you can go for really high mileage, but 70% depreciation in the UK, 68% depreciation in the USA. So no matter which way you look at it, you get in the car for nearly a quarter of its price after 8 years. That is a heck of a deal. The next two nearly didn't make the list. However, I thought we're looking at sort of what you can get real value for money here. Putting a vehicle with a particular badge or a particular look or a particular specification outside of your home or on your driveway. Well, Porsche is a bit of a dream car for a lot of people. And while 911s hold their money extraordinarily well, and the Caymans and the Boxsters very much the same, you can go for the SUVs and find yourself a real bargain. Now, this next one is the strongest on the list of all the cars. The Porsche Macan, okay? It actually wasn't going to qualify because in the UK, it's a 49% depreciation. But in the USA, I found that it goes as much as 62% off its list price after about 8 years. So I thought, for that reason, I'm going to get it on the list. But it is one of the stronger performers. So in some ways, it kind of hits both elements of what you're looking for. It's had a big hit to its original price now for you to buy it. But because its residuals are pretty strong, if you're thinking you want to own it for 3-4 years and then sell it on, it should still be worth quite a bit of money relative to what you buy it for. You do find this with cars at around the 8-year number, they start to, their numbers start to flatten out in the depreciation curves. Now, some things will depreciate all the way to zero, but they're not that common. And Porsche Macans seem to have found the bottom of their U. Now, that could and likely is because after making the decision to send the car into an EV platform, they then changed their mind in having the current generation on sale and the EV whilst they make a decision of what to do with the non-EV Macan. And because of that, it's kind of helped the residuals, because if you buy a 2015 Macan, okay, the car's been facelifted several times, but the one in the showroom is just a facelift of the one you've got, and you can still buy it brand new. So that will help residuals. The Cayenne, though, the Cayenne does take a hell of a whack in depreciation, 58% in the UK. Up to, and the USA really surprised me, and I can only think it's because if you ask people in Europe, the UK, also kind of, I saw this quite a bit in Australia as well, ask them about a used Volkswagen Group car, whether it is Audi, Porsche, probably not Lamborghini, but you get the idea. It can be any of the badges, along with sort of Skoda, Seat, Cupra, all the ones that are on the more budget end. People have more confidence because there's almost in every town you can find someone who's got a Volkswagen specialist around the corner, or who knows someone, or who knows a master technician. And because Volkswagens, now Porsche are different, but the Cayenne particularly does share quite a few of its componentry with the other sort of large SUVs in the Volkswagen group. So the Touareg, the Audi Q7, the Bentley Bentayga. And I think that means that in Europe, we're not quite as scared of them as a used proposition, because while we know the parts will be a bit more expensive and some things will be Porsche only, you're not going to have that knowledge gap where you take it in and someone just doesn't know how to fix it. And the only people are the Porsche dealer, and they're very, very expensive. Whereas in the US, I don't think they have quite as many Volkswagen specialists because of the dominance of the American car industry. And because of that, people do get a bit scared at the idea of a 8, 9, 10-year-old Cayenne. Also, what helps it in the UK and in Europe is the fact that you can get diesel engines. And if you ask someone, do you want a V6 or a V8 diesel with 100,000 miles on it, doesn't really scare them, especially if it's from a manufacturer that they know are pretty good with their diesel engines. And although Porsche may not talk about their diesel engines anymore, they've put it off to the side over here. We all know Volkswagen were dominant in this era, particularly the era where these used Cayennes will be. So either way, you were getting a hell of a deal, but that is one of the stronger depreciated vehicles in this entire list. From there, though, we go to the Audi and Audi Q5, followed by the Q7. I'm going to come on to the Q7 in just a second, but the Audi Q5 in the UK, 55% depreciation. It's actually a bit of a favourite in the UK, and it strengthened its overall residuals on the scoring. However, the USA, you don't seem to love them as much used. and it can be up to 70% reduction in a Audi Q5 after 8 years in average mileage. So if you're out there, you like an Audi badge, and you're thinking, you know what, 8 years old, average mileage, I wouldn't mind taking a risk, but I don't want the big Q7. They sold plenty of Q5s. There is lots of choice for you to go out there and find the exact specification you want. And if you're in the USA, you're going to be paying 1/3 of what the price was when it was brand new, only 8 years ago. In the UK, yes, you're going to be paying nearer half the money. But again, a bit similar to the Macan, generally speaking, the Q5 residuals going into the 10, and I looked up to 12 years old on these vehicles, and even then, they only hit about 1/3 of their value. So we do like a Q5 in the UK, and because of that, well-kept ones do hold their money, but they take that big, strong hit in the first 8 years, so you can get one for half price. Now, the Q7 takes a bigger hit in both markets, and in fact, it's one of the worst performers on the list because 60% of its value in the UK is gone after 8 years. In the USA, and now I should add a caveat here, and I think this is because of the diesel era in the US and the fact that that's had a knock-on effect to the big vehicles, especially the ones that were diesels, although I know some of you like them. And if you're in the US and you're willing to have a diesel, especially in one of these Q7s, go and ask any motoring journalist in the US. They'll tell you it was actually a pretty good car. But up to 80% of its value is wiped off in the US after 8 years. Now, also, that's quite a big gap from the UK. And when I looked in Europe, it was more like the UK. Sort of 60% is gone after 8 years, which makes it one of the worst performers, but kind of in line with the cars you'd kind of expect from Mercedes and from BMW. Speaking of BMW, they're coming up right away next, and it's the X5, 60% again, so tying in the UK for its residuals, but it's a bit stronger over in the USA. Possibly BMW specialists are a bit more common to find than the Volkswagen specialists. Maybe just the BMW badge has more cachet over in the USA, but it's still about a quarter of its value after 8 years average mileage again. So, if you could get a diesel, one of those X5s, 8 years old, you may have a vehicle that could last you, if you've got someone that can service it and really take care of it, I don't know, end of time, maybe? So that's the top 10, but I had to do a top 12 because many of you watching will think, hold on, there's a car missing. Well, we're going to come on to it. But number 11 on the list is the Volkswagen. Is the Volkswagen Touareg. Now, the Touareg is an extremely popular car in Europe. And I know South Africans watching love the Touareg, and the Aussies, not forgetting you, and the New Zealanders, you all love the Touareg. Touareg was even popular across parts of Asia as well. So this is a popular car, but it's not necessarily helped its residuals. And I think it's because it is so associated with diesel engines. And if we look at 8 years ago, this is sort of peak Dieselgate era. And so if you want one in the UK, okay, it's only going to be about 55% of its new price to its price today, but that's still a colossal discount, especially because Touaregs, we don't really know what the future of them is going to be. Maybe they're going to move fully EV, maybe they're going to get hybrids. The one that's currently out has had its life extended and extended. It's been going since 2018. You can get one of the sort of first of the current generation Touaregs, and for 45% of the price it was new, that's still going to look, if it's a well-kept one, like a pretty new car, and it's still probably going to feel like a pretty new car because the Touareg, over all the ones I've mentioned, maybe the Jeep as well, they're built to really take a beating. And so they are a bit of a pick if you know you're going to have to use it for towing or family life or whatever it is, because it's probably stood up to the test of time fairly well. In the USA, though, if all of that rang a bell and you thought, yeah, actually, I'm quite interested in a Touareg now, well, you can get them for a quarter of the price that they were brand new if you look at 8 years old. And if you're looking at diesel, well, diesel is probably the quarter of the price. If you look over at the petrol ones, then, yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more. But possibly those diesel ones, maybe no one will touch them. Great fuel economy, and if you can find someone that knows their Volkswagens, there is no real reason why these shouldn't do 200,000 miles and beyond, really. They may cost a little bit more than the Japanese to keep going on that mileage, but if you like your Volkswagens, they're a great place to be. There is always going to be one winner, though, of the depreciation top spec car in the SUV land, though. Yes, of course. It's the Range Rover, the L405 generation Range Rover, the one that ran from 2013 all the way up until 2021. Even in the UK, the home of Land Rover, where you can just go corner to corner and find yourself people that see these cars every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Even here, 70% of its value is gone after 8 years. And if it's a very high mileage one, it can be even more than that. In the USA, though, over 80%, 81, 82% of its value. Now, I think that is partially because you don't really get the diesel engines. You did on this generation for a little while, but ultimately people in the UK and in Europe, they love the TDV or SD V8 engine, which, you know, if you're looking at 8 years old, is going to be the one you're going to really find for sale. Obviously, for the US, not so much. It's going to be the 5-litre supercharged, and they do take quite a bit of maintenance. They are quite heavy on fuel, although for a reliability standpoint, those two engines, whatever people may say about Range Rovers, the big engines they put in there, generally speaking, are pretty reliable. They do run to high mileage. They won't do it with just an oil change. They do need their maintenance. But if they get it and they get it on time, it can be a good car to own. And just ask people, doing a long drive, especially if it's a wet, rainy, winter day, and you have to do 3-4 hours in a car, a Range Rover is a nice place. A working Range Rover is a nice place to be. Now, I wanted to add one wild card into the list. Something to let you all go on and think, didn't think of that one. There were a few cars that could have made this, but I wanted a real sort of curveball wild card. And so it was the Tesla Model X. I know a few of you just won't like EVs, won't like Teslas, won't like that it's included in the list, but I thought, what about if you said, I'm going to go for one. I'm going to go for one of those big battery Model X's. I like the idea of the swinging up doors, the gull wing doors, and hey, I'll put it on the driveway and enjoy it while I can. Well, in the UK, if you can find one that's 8 years old, average mileage, and maybe as a private seller, you're looking at 1/4 of its price if you're looking for an 8-year-old one, because the X really has lost its popularity. A lot of people that were interested in the X have now gone over to the Y, or they've moved to a different manufacturer now that everyone has an SUV EV among the sort of last 5 years of cars. If you're in the USA, though, we won't mention exactly why this has happened, but people have opinions on the manufacturer and the person behind it. And because of that, you can get a high-spec Model X for up to 82% of its new price off. The idea of getting the Tesla Model X for 20%, but anyway, I think these are about $135,000 in the US brand new. So $25,000, $30,000, that might be your entry in. That's not bad going. Now, I know a lot of you won't like an EV or won't like a Tesla, but if you're interested, hey, there could be a great bargain there. One of the big factors here is battery warranty, and at the age we're looking, it's probably just starting to slip out of the battery warranty, and that will be why there is such a heavy depreciation in the sort of 6th, 7th, and 8th year. And so, yes, you're going to have to take a brave pill and go for one that hasn't got a warranty on it. But hey, there are lots of Teslas out there that have run to 300,000 miles. There's a good YouTube video out there by a well-known journalist who's done 400,000 miles or bought one with 400,000 miles. So there may be life left yet. And if you want a wild card, Tesla might be it. For the rest of you, though, a Range Rover, BMW X5, Porsche Cayenne. How about Mercedes GLE for you? All these are on the table. Let me know which one you think you may go for. There are guides for most of these cars on the channel that you can check out next. But otherwise, have a good day. I shall see you in the next one.